The NBA season is 2 months away, which means it's that time of the year for everyone to go out and put out their prediction videos, even though they're going to be 70 to 80% wrong. So I'm no different. So in today's video, I'm going to be predicting every single seed in the Eastern Conference for the 2024 NBA season from the bottom to the top. So if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, let me know in the comments section down below what you guys think, whether you agree or disagree. I know there's going to be some salty motherfuckers out there. It is what it is. But let's kick things off. Number 15, at the very bottom of the East, I've got the Washington Wizards. Look, Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, they might fuck around and average 55 to 60 points together as a duo. But for every 120 points they score in a game, they're probably going to give up 130 points. So I've got them dead last. Next up, I've got the Detroit Pistons. Going to be a developmental year, I suppose, for these guys. They got a lot of potential between the core of, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Osar Thompson, Jalen Duren, not Killian Hayes. Going to be fun to watch. They're going to show flashes of potential, but they're not there yet. At number 13, I've got the Charlotte Hornets. Look, all they've really done is add Brandon Miller, who's not the most NBA-ready prospect. He's got potential for sure. And then they're also getting Miles Bridges back as well. They're not gonna move the needle that much. Number 12, got the Orlando Magic. Plenty of potential in this team. I think they're going to continue to take strides forward as a team. Obviously, with their call of Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, obviously Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., some of the other guys as well that I haven't named. But ultimately, they're just not talented enough to really move to kind of contend for a play-in seed, I suppose. So I do have them at number 12. At number 11, I've got the Toronto Raptors. So this is a team, in my opinion, which is basically the definition of a team stuck in NBA purgatory, okay? They're not really good enough to contend for a mid to high playoff spot. They're not bad enough to be tanking for the number 1 seed overall as well. And effectively this offseason, they swapped out Fred VanVleet, got Dennis Schroeder, which is a worse fit on paper as well because he doesn't shoot the ball as well in an already clunky starting lineup, right? Now, I don't want to sleep on the Raptors because obviously they've got tons of potential with, Scotty, OG, Siakam. They did play pretty well with Jakob Poeltl as well. But ultimately, without a clear direction in this franchise, I feel like things for them will get worse before they get better. So I've got the Raptors in at number 11. All right, so that summarizes the bottom of the barrel. Now moving on to some more exciting stuff. We've got the play-in teams, okay? At number 10, I've got the Brooklyn Nets, who I think will be a very, very fun team to watch. Mikal Bridges, he played like at an all-star level when he was traded to the Nets. He averaged 26.1 points on 47.5% shooting from the field, 37.6% shooting from three, and 89.4% shooting from the free throw line. And they've also got tons of depth and a lot of very useful complementary pieces, between Cam Johnson, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, Nick Claxton, Royce O'Neal, Lonnie Walker, Cam Thomas. There's a lot of potential there. I think the X factor really boils down to how good of a player Ben Simmons is going to be when he does return. It's reported right now that it's 100%. I feel like that's always the case in the offseason. He's always 100% healthy. And then when he comes back, he's got back issues. He still plays, uninspiring basketball. But if he truly is 100%, which is what he's saying, the best he's felt since his injury or whatever, then these Nets are going to be pretty dangerous, man. If we get that 2020, 2021 Ben Simmons, they're looking really good. So I've got the Nets sneaking into a play-in spot at number 10 and just being that team that no one really wants to face. At number 9, I've got the Chicago Bulls, which I think is another team that's kind of stuck in NBA purgatory. So what I mean by that, you kind of expect the Bulls to make the play-in tournament. Anything more, I feel like they kind of overachieve, which is great. Anything less, and it feels like they've disappointed slightly. In the offseason, they kept Andre Drummond. What else did they do? They added Javon Carter. They added Torrey Craig. Both of them pretty nice signings. But look, unless Lonzo Ball magically comes back from his knee injury, I just don't see the Bulls really taking that next level. And I've only got them slightly ahead of the Nets just purely because they have more star power between Levine and DeRozan. At number 8, I've got the Indiana Pacers, which actually might be a surprise to many people. I think they're a very, very fun team to watch. They've got tons of potential. They're young, and I expect them to take the next step forward, especially with Rick Carlisle at the helm. He's one of the best minds in basketball. You've got Tyrese Halliburton, who's a blossoming star, only getting better. And they went out there in the offseason and they addressed their biggest need, which is adding some size. They were starting Aaron Nesmith at power forward for a big chunk of the season. He's like 6'5", 6'6". So they went ahead. They got Bruce Brown, obviously 6'4", but he plays like he's 6'10", and I'm pretty sure he's going to be starting at power forward. You've got Jarris Walker, who they traded for, and they've also traded for Obi Toppin as well. So it's a much needed size. You've got a young star. You've got all these great players surrounding him. I think they're going to take the next step and surprise a lot of people. And they're going to be that team, in the first round that kind of like the Brooklyn Nets, nobody's going to want to face because regardless of how good you are, they're probably going to be pesky as hell and steal 1 or 2 games from you. So I've got the Pacers at number 8. At number 7, I've got the Atlanta Hawks, okay? So the Hawks, you look at their roster and their offseason moves, I think what they'll benefit from the most is actually a full offseason training camp with Quinn Snyder. I'm very high on Quinn Snyder as a coach. I think putting him and letting him kind of work with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray for the entire offseason is going to do wonders for their team. But ultimately, they're more or less the same team, right? They dumped John Collins as well. But he's not the 2010 guy that it once was. And I think, you look at the way the roster is structured now, there's going to be a lot more versatility. You can play DeAndre Hunter, Sadiq Bey, Jalen Johnson at the 4. So there's a lot more versatility. I also love that they went out there, got Wes Matthews, got Patty Mills, some much needed veteran presence on this team. So I think they'll improve, but I just don't see them overtaking any of the other 6 teams I have ahead of them, just because the other 6 teams are just a level above, I suppose. So I've got the Hawks in at number 7 and that final play-in spot. So at number 6, I've got the Philadelphia 76ers, because as of right now, James Harden looks like he's going to be sitting out training camp and he's not going to do anything unless he gets traded to another team. So they're a pretty hard team to rank just because, you don't know what you're going to get in an inevitable James Harden trade, I suppose. So right now, I have no choice but to rank them the way they are. And the truth is, without James Harden on the team, they're a very mid-tier team. They're lucky to be 6th, if I'm being honest with you. I think the person who's going to suffer the most is actually Joel Embiid. Now, you look at Embiid's career, he's never actually played with a non-elite playmaker. He's always had Ben Simmons or James Harden by his side. So imagine him playing with either Tyrese Maxey or DeAnthony Melton or Patrick Beverley as his main playmaker. His efficiency is going to take a huge dip unless Tyrese Maxey, of course, becomes an elite playmaker. Now, look at the trade rumors to the Clippers. There's a lot of rumors saying that Daryl Morey doesn't even want Terrence Mann, he wants those first-round picks. But hypothetically speaking, if they get a Terrence Mann, if they get a Norman Powell, then they might improve marginally, but it doesn't really move the needle that much. I feel like they're still going to be a maybe 4 to 5 seed at the absolute best, but right now, I feel like they're a 6 seed. At the number 5 seed, I've actually got the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, a lot of people feel like the Cavaliers are, they had a pretty successful season last season, went 51-31. People think that's a lot of momentum. They're going to improve, which I can certainly see happening. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of other teams in the East got a bit better. And the Cavs, in my opinion, I feel like they got worse or stayed the same at best. The fact of the matter is, they went out there and their biggest offseason acquisition was Max Strus, who they signed for, I think it was 4 years and $64 million. And also George Niang, who was 3 years, $27 million, I believe. Now, we'll focus more so on the Strus signing. I just don't think that's a great signing whatsoever. There's a lot of other ways you can spend $64 million instead of putting it towards Max Strus. Bottom line is, if your starting lineup is Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen, those guys are locked in. You need a small forward who's going to be a reliable number 3 option, so not 90% of the offensive burden is going to be on the backcourt. And B, you need someone who's a good to great perimeter defender, because, Garland and Mitchell, they're both 6'1", and they're not amazing defenders themselves. Now, Max Strus is quite the opposite of that. Obviously, he's known for being a 3-point shooter, pretty streaky at that. And defensively, he offers next to nothing. You look at the playoffs, he was benched for fucking Duncan Robinson, man. So you're paying this guy $64 million. I personally think that if you're not going to spend that money, you were better off just either starting Karis LeVert, who at least offers a bit more defense, a bit more size, and he's actually improved as a shooter as well, and is a much more complete offensive player in comparison to a Max Strus. Or, just hope that Isaac Okoro becomes a better defender, I suppose. But don't think Strus was the right move. I feel like they're going to take a step back. At number 4, I've got the New York Knicks, who had a relatively quiet offseason despite, tons of trade rumors surrounding both Julius Randle and even RJ Barrett. Now, in the offseason, they traded away Obi Toppin, obviously, for 2 second-round picks, and they signed Dante DiVincenzo on a deal for just under $12 million a year, which I think is a great, great signing. He offers a lot to this Knicks team, so that's going to be pretty good. Now, I've got them at the 4 seed because, Philadelphia, they're going backwards. And the Cavs, like I mentioned, I don't think they're going to repeat the success that they had last season. Now, we also have to keep in mind that for the Knicks, this was Brunson's first season, leading a team as that guy. And I think with more experience, he's only going to get better. He's already proven that, he's him. He's got that confidence. He's going to be someone that, you trust leading the team. And I think it's fair to say that, guys like Emmanuel Quickley, who's only 24, RJ Barrett, who's 23, Quentin Grimes, who's 23. It's pretty reasonable to expect these guys are going to take a leap forward. So I don't see why the Knicks would, get any worse. So I think, with these marginal improvements, I think they can overtake the Cavs since they were the 4 and 5 seed anyway last season. So I just feel like the order's going to be reversed. I've got the Knicks in at number 4. At number 3, I've got the Miami Heat, which is a little bit of a ballsy prediction. Obviously, they were runners-up in the NBA Finals. Kudos to them. But what a lot of people forget is that they did finish the regular season at the 8th seed last season. They were a play-in team. They were one loss away from getting bounced from the playoffs as a whole, I suppose. So obviously, you can't compare that team to, what the team I expect to see next season as well. I think they're going to have a shit ton of momentum, carry on from the NBA Finals into next season. These guys know that, they're prepared for that spotlight, I suppose, and they're going to show it. So, obviously losing Gabe Vincent and Max Strus does hurt them a bit. But at the same time, I feel like Josh Richardson is a great, great signing. Also feel like Thomas Bryant is a great, great signing as well, adding some size. What I'd like to see them do, right now they're kind of just sitting, waiting to see what happens with Dame. I'd like to see them personally take a stab at someone like Christian Wood. Obviously, the Heat, they're lacking a bit of size right now. And I think Wood obviously adds a lot of size and versatility, especially, the ability to play 5 out with him at center. That'll be pretty interesting. And I think, there's a lot of reports of his ego and how his doesn't just fit with other systems. And I feel like if there's anyone that can get him in check, it's probably going to be Erik Spoelstra. But ultimately, the Heat season kind of boils down, if and when, the big if, I suppose, but if and when they do land Dame, if they do get him without giving away too much, they can finish number 2, maybe even number 1. But right now, got them at number 3. At the number 2 seed, I've got my Boston Celtics. Look, I think losing Marcus Smart and Grant Williams is going to hurt the team chemistry and the vibes in the locker room quite a fair bit because these were 2 of the most vocal personalities in the locker room, I suppose. But with that being said, talent-wise, there's no reason to believe that the Celtics can't cruise to a top 2 or 3 seed in the Eastern Conference with their new look roster, right? Porzingis, excellent off-ball threat, perfect guy to pair, perfect third star, I suppose, to pair with the Jays, given that he's healthy. Derek White, he's shown that he's more than capable of stepping in and running the point guard. He's actually a gun when he's playing point. So I'm very, very excited to see what he does in his full season, starting as point guard. And then, I'm hopeful for, O'Shea Brissett filling in that Grant Williams role as that gritty, high-energy guy coming off the bench. I think there's a lot of potential there. Now, I won't lie. Depth is a bit of an issue for the Celtics, but right now, they're currently linked to both TJ Warren and Lamar Stevens to fill out the roster. I think they have 2 roster spots available. Personally, I love the idea of signing TJ Warren. Look, you don't need this guy to be bubble TJ Warren, but if he can give you, some bursts of energy, bursts of scoring in those 10 to 15 minutes per game he plays per night, I think that's going to be very, very huge, especially on a team that's already thin on the wings. So it's not like he's the worst option available because beyond him, you got Sam Hauser off the bench. You got Jonathan Walsh. I think that's his name, Jonathan Walsh, the rookie, and you got O'Shea Brissett. So I would love to see that happen. But look, I've got them at number 2 because at number 1, I've got the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay. Kind of pains me to say it, but I feel like these guys, they're the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. And as long as Giannis, Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton are healthy, I don't expect them to... I just expect them to be the number 1 team, I suppose. Because, even though I'm a Celtics fan, you got to give the Bucks respect because the last time this trio was healthy, they won a freaking championship, man. And so until I see some notable signs of decline when all 3 are healthy, I have to put the Bucks at number 1. Now, one thing I did note, in one of my previous videos was that backup point guard position is going to be a bit of a question mark following the departure of, Javon Carter and Joe Ingles. But you've still got Giannis and Chris Middleton who can obviously run the show there. So look, ultimately, the Bucks, they do only have 1 to 2 more years left in their championship window because, Drew's get 32 or 33. Middleton's around that same age. Brook Lopez is 35. Now Giannis has come out and said, unless these guys are contending for a championship, I may not re-sign. Something along those lines. So look, I expect them to be fucking locked in from the start of the season. I expect them to make kind of a big splash at the trade deadline, bolster up that roster in preparation for the playoffs. But in terms of regular season standings, yeah, I've got the Bucks at number 1. So that concludes my video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Was I spot on? Was I horribly off? Like, subscribe. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.